Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm out with another crochet tutorial, and this time I'm going to teach you how to make something summery and something super easy, which is going to be this dragonfly halter top. I have already shared something with dragonflies on my channel, which was this sweater. So if you are able to conquer this one, then this halter top is going to be super easy and super simple, because you are basically able to complete this project within 1 to 2 days, depends on your speed and level. Otherwise, this one's going to be a lot simpler, and if you're looking to create something for summer, then this is perfect top for you. I have already created a couple of them in different colors just to test out this pattern a couple of times, so you're more than welcome to use different colors if you wish, or simply you can also just mix and match different colors in between these rows when you are working on this top. But the super cool thing about this top is that you're able to create it in one go, meaning that you don't have to cut off yarn, then reattach it, assemble other parts, nothing of that. You're just going in one go and just doing it as you go, basically. So that's super cool. And as always, I have made sure that I'm explaining every single stitch and every single step in as much detail as possible, so everyone is able to follow along, including all the beginners out there. But if you feel like I'm going too slow or too fast, feel free to just adjust the speed of the video, and I'm sure that it will help. But if you have any questions or need some extra help, then just feel free to reach out in the comment section below, and I will try to help you from there. Otherwise, I have also prepared a written version of this top, which I will link down below. And also, if you're interested in this dragonfly sweater, I will also link it down there. But now, without further ado, let's jump into it. Here are the materials that I will be using. Here I have some 4-ply cotton yarn in this dark blue color, and in case if you're wondering, here are some more specs just in case if you're interested. And in total, for size small, I will need approximately 100 grams. And then, of course, you will also need a crochet hook. For this project, I will be using 3mm hook, and you will also need scissors. And as optional, you can also use some stitch markers, but it's not mandatory. But now let's jump into this project. Here I have my yarn, and now we can get started. And our first step will be to do some chains. And before we can do that, we actually have to do a slip knot. So for that, I'm just grabbing yarn like this, then twisting it and pulling yarn through the loop that I have to create a knot and also a loop like this. And then I'm just grabbing my crochet hook and putting it inside this loop, and then just tightening to make sure that this loop actually fits our hook. And then our next step is to do some chains. For size small, I will be doing 27 chains, and to go a size up, you basically just have to add 6 extra chains. So I'm just proceeding with doing my chains, and to do that, you basically just have to grab yarn and pull it through the loop that you have on your hook, like this. So just continue doing some chains until you have your desired number of chains done, and I will be doing 27 in total. Here I have done all 27 chains for size small, and this is how it looks. And if you measure it against your body, it should kind of cover the width of your neck, so that's something to just keep in mind. And also important thing to note is that you have to have an uneven number of these chains, because that will be kind of important later on in this project. But now we can continue with the first row, and throughout this pattern, our main stitch will be double crochet. And before we can start working on first row, we just have to skip the last 3 chains, so 1, 2 and 3, and these 3 chains are going to count as 1 double crochet. Then after that, in the 4th chain, this is where we will put our first stitch, and we will be working on doing double crochet, as I mentioned. So to do that, you just have to yarn over, then go through this chain here, then grab yarn and pull it through to have 3 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through 2 like this, yarn over again and pull through remaining 2 like that. So that's 1 double crochet. and this is what you are repeating throughout all of these chains that you have from the very beginning. So basically just adding 1 double crochet stitch inside every single chain that you have here. So here I have done already a couple of them. Also we have this chain of 3 from the very beginning, like the skipped chains that we have, and that is also going to count as 1 double crochet. So that's just something to keep in mind. Otherwise you just now have to continue adding double crochets until you reach the very end here. So I will meet you back there. Here I have added 1 double crochet stitch inside every single chain that we had, and now this first row is finalized and this is how it looks. So in total for my size I now have 25 stitches, which also includes this chain of 3 that we have here from the beginning. So it's important to note that you have an uneven number of these stitches in total. And now we can proceed working on the second row. So starting from the second row we will be doing increases on both sides to gradually make this top a little bit wider on both sides that we have. So for that, first we are just turning our work like this to begin with this second row, and then our next step is to chain 3. So 1, 2 and 3, and this chain of 3 is again going to count as 1 double crochet. So basically starting from row 2 we were adding 2 stitches in the beginning and 2 stitches in the end. So this is already 1. So now we just have to add double crochet inside this first stitch that we have here, like that. So this is technically 2 stitches in 1, and then after that we are just continuing with doing double crochets, 1 in each stitch, until we reach the end of this row. So this is just what I'm doing for now. So adding 1 double crochet inside every single stitch and just continuing that until I reach the very end, and that is where I'm going to meet you back again. So here I have reached the very end. So now the last stitch that we have here is this chain of 3, and that is where we are adding 2 double crochet stitches inside this same space. So here I'm adding the first one and then also adding the second one, like this. So now row 2 is completed and this is how it looks. And for my size now at the moment I have 27 stitches, and now we can proceed with row 3. And starting from row 3 we will start adding in dragonflies. So here if you want you can take your stitch marker and we can just mark where is the middle point of this row that we have here. So since I have 27 stitches in total, I should be marking the 14th stitch from each of the sides. So just count from one of the sides or just double check from both of them to find where exactly is the middle point of these stitches. So in my case I just have to find the 14th stitch, which would be this one, and this is where I'm just placing in a stitch marker because that's kind of helpful for the next round where we will have to find the middle point. Otherwise, if you're comfortable without stitch markers, it's totally fine and you don't have to use it. But now we can proceed with third row, and for that again I'm just turning my work like this, and then in the beginning as always we are starting with chain of 3. So 1, 2 and 3, and then we are just adding double crochets inside every single stitch. So again we just have to keep in mind that we are starting and ending each row with 2 stitches. And for now I'm just continuing to add double crochets until I reach the middle point of the previous row, or basically when I reach this stitch marker that I have here, which is placed in the very middle stitch from the previous row. So just continue adding double crochets until you reach this middle stitch. And here I have now reached the middle point, so I can take out this stitch marker that we have here like that, and then I can proceed with adding in this dragonfly. So for that our first step is to chain 2, 1 and 2, and then we are skipping this stitch that we had here in the middle, and starting from the next one we are just again proceeding with adding 1 double crochet inside every single stitch that we have here. So at this point I have just created a gap here, and continuing with doing double crochets until I reach the very last stitch, which is this chain of 3, and in there we are just adding again 2 double crochet stitches inside the same space. And here I am at the end of the 3rd row, so in the very last space, which is this chain of 3, I'm just adding 2 double crochets to also add an increase on this side, like so. So now this 3rd row is finalized and we can proceed with the 4th one. So for that I'm just turning my work, and to begin, as always, chaining 3, 1, 2 and 3, and this chain of 3 also counts as double crochet, and then we are just adding double crochets inside every single stitch, and we just have to keep on doing that until we are 5 stitches away from this hole that we have here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where I would stop adding double crochets. So I'm just continuing to do them until that point where we are 5 stitches away, and that's what we have to do for now to continue adding in this dragonfly. So here I am 5 stitches away from the gap, and if I just double check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as you can see we have these 5 stitches. So now our next step for adding dragonfly is just to chain 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11, like that. So at this point we just have to create these 11 chains that I just did, and then after that our next step is to skip 5 stitches after the gap. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in this 6th one, that is where we are again starting to add double crochets like this, and this is how it looks when I add the first one, and then we just have to continue adding that until we reach the end of this row. So 1 double crochet stitch inside each of them, and then in the very last one, which is this chain of 3, we just have to do 2 double crochet stitches as always, as we are finishing each row at this point. So just continue doing that. So now row 4 is finalized, and this is how it looks, and we can proceed with the 5th one. So for that, again, we are just turning our work and starting to work on a new row. So starting with chain of 3, 1, 2, 3, which counts as always as double crochet, and then just proceeding with adding double crochet stitches, 1 in each. And at this point we should keep on doing double crochet stitches until we are 1 stitch away from this big gap that we have here. So just add double crochets until you get to this point, and then I will meet you back again there, like this. So now I'm 1 stitch away from this big gap that we have here, and now our next step is to actually add 2 double crochet stitches inside this next stitch that we have here. So I'm just proceeding with adding 1 like this, and then also adding the second one inside this very same space, like that. So this is how it's supposed to look now. And now our next step is to just chain 4. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, like this. So this is how it should look at this point, and then we are adding 1 single crochet, which will be done throughout these 2 gaps that we have here. So I'm just going through this gap 2 rows below, then grabbing yarn and pulling it through like this to have 2 loops on my hook, then yarning over and pulling through both loops like this. So that is 1 single crochet, and it connects together these 2 rows or chains of these 2 rows. And then after that our next step is again to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, like this. And then we are adding again 2 double crochet stitches in the first stitch after this gap. So again, just going through the stitch and adding 2 double crochet stitches inside the same space. This is how it should look at this point, and then after that we are again just proceeding with adding double crochets, 1 in each, until the end of this row, and then in the very last stitch we are again adding 2 double crochets in one. So here row 5 is now finalized, and this is how it looks. So again we can proceed with row 6, and for that we are just turning our work and starting as always with chain of 3 that counts as 1 double crochet, and then just adding double crochets inside every single stitch that we have here. And for now we just have to continue adding them until we reach this gap that we have here. So just continue adding double crochet stitches until you get there. So here I have reached this gap, and now our next step is to add 4 double crochets inside this gap here. So I'm just proceeding with adding these 4 stitches inside this gap. So here I already have 2, and then just also adding the 3rd one, and then also the 4th one. So all 4 of them inside this same space like this. And then after that our next step is to chain 1, so like this. And then because we chain 1, we are also kind of skipping this single crochet that we have here, and then right away proceeding with this next gap where we are again adding 4 double crochets inside the same space. So basically the same thing, just mirrored on the other side like this. So this is how it looks at this stage. And then after that we are just continuing with adding 1 double crochet on top of every single stitch that we have from the previous row, and then at the end of this row we are again just placing 2 stitches in the very last one. So here row 6 is finalized, and this is how it looks. And now we can proceed with the 7th row. So for that I'm just turning my work, and actually rows 7, 8 and 9 are all going to be the same. So here I'm just going to explain you the steps for the 7th, and then just make sure to also repeat the same for row 8 and row 9. So we are beginning this row with chain of 3, 1, 2, 3, and it as always counts as 1 double crochet, and then we are just adding double crochets inside every single stitch that we have here from the previous row until we reach this point where we have this gap. So just continue adding double crochets until you reach the gap like this. And then when we get to the gap we are basically just chaining 1, skipping this gap, and proceeding with adding double crochets again, starting from the stitch right after the gap. So in this way we are just adding an additional gap in here on top of the gap that we have from the previous row. So this is what you have to do, and then after that you are just continuing again with double crochets until you reach the end of this row, and then in the last stitch you are just adding 2 double crochets inside the same space. So here row 7 is finalized, and this is how it looks. So now basically you just have to repeat it to also add row 8 and 9, and that will basically just make this dragonfly's tail a little bit longer. So just continue with adding 2 identical rows and repeat the stitches and steps that we had for row 7. So here rows 8 and 9 are completed, and this is how it looks. And this also completes our dragonfly. As you can see, we have added it in. And now we can proceed with the next rows, which would be row 10, 11 and 12. And all of those basically will be just simple plain rows, meaning that we won't have any gaps or anything like that. So basically we will just be repeating this second row that we have. So as always, I'm just starting with row 10, which would be also the same process for row 11 and 12. I'm just turning my work, chaining 3, 1, 2, 3, which counts as double crochet, and then just adding double crochet stitches inside every single stitch that we have from the previous round. And then once I will reach this gap, this is where I will also add in 1 double crochet. So here I am at this gap, and inside here basically I'm just adding 1 double crochet stitch like that. So that's simple. And then after that, again just proceeding with adding 1 double crochet inside each stitch, and then at the end of this row again doing 2 double crochet stitches inside the same space in the very last stitch that we have. So row 10 is now finalized, and this is how it looks. So we just have to repeat the same process now also for row 11 and 12, meaning that we are just adding double crochets on top of every single stitch and doing increases in the beginning as well as in the end of each row. So I'm just continuing with adding 2 extra rows, 11 and 12, and then I will meet you back again once I am done with them. Here I have completed the rows 11 and 12, and this is how it looks. So together with row 10, it kind of gives us 3 regular rows, which actually is going to be the space between adding the following dragonfly. So you can imagine that here we will have the next one that comes here. And now starting from row 13, we will have some minor adjustments, meaning that we will just try to create this increase on both sides a little bit more rapidly growing. So that means that instead of doing 2 double crochet stitches in the beginning and end, we will be doing 3 double crochet stitches. So that is basically the only adjustment that we have. But also starting from row 13, we are now again proceeding with adding an additional dragonfly. So kind of to just explain how it should be. So again, we just want to make sure that it's on top of the previous one, so adding it exactly in the middle. And at this point you can choose to either count the stitches to find the middle point, or if you want to figure it out a little bit faster, you can basically just find this middle point that you have here and then just count 3 rows below. So 1, 2 and 3. So this stitch is the middle one because that is exactly on the top of previous dragonfly that we have. And if you wish, you can also place a stitch marker in there so it's easier for you to note where exactly you will have to start adding in the next dragonfly. But now let's proceed with row 13 and let's start doing these adjustments. So as always, I'm just starting the row with chain of 3, 1, 2 and 3, and this is going to count as 1 double crochet. So we already have 1 of these 3, and then in this first stitch we are just adding 2 double crochets. So this is 1, and then also placing the second one. So here, starting from row 13, we are always beginning this row with 3 stitches. And then after that, we are again just adding 1 double crochet inside every single stitch that we have here. And we are doing that until we reach the middle of this row, which we have also marked with this stitch marker. So just continue adding double crochets until you meet this stitch marker. And here I am at this stitch marker, so now I can remove it because we don't need it for now. And then our next step is to start working on this next dragonfly. So for that, as you remember, we first just had to chain 2, so 1 and 2, and then we are skipping the stitch below and starting to add double crochets right after that. So again, we have added this gap here, what we had here. So basically in terms of dragonfly, you just have to repeat all the previous steps, so I'm not going to go in much detail here. And then after you have added this gap, you're just continuing with adding double crochets until you reach the end of this row, and then in the very last stitch, that is where you will have to do 3 double crochets inside the same space. So I'm just going to meet you there. And here I am at the end of this 13th row, and here I have this last stitch. So in there, as I mentioned, we just have to add in 3 double crochets inside this very same space. So I'm starting to work on the first one and then just adding 2 more. So here I have 2, and then also the third one inside exactly the same space, like this. So now this 13th row is finalized, and this is how it looks. So already with the first one, you can see that we are starting to increase a little bit more rapidly, and this increase is a little bit more pronounced, as you can see. But now basically from row 13th onwards, we just have to continue doing these 3 double crochet increases on both sides, as well as we are just repeating to add these dragonflies that we have here as well. So the following one is coming here, and for the dragonfly steps you can just go back in the video to figure out where comes what, but otherwise in between the dragonflies we will always have these 3 rows of basic stitches, so we can kind of like notice a little bit better where one dragonfly ends and where the new one is starting. But otherwise for now the goal is just to keep on adding these 3 double crochet increases on both sides until these ends that we have here on the sides, that they actually meet each other when you are wrapping this top around your waist like this. So we just want to keep on increasing and keep on adding length until these 2 ends will be able to meet each other. And for my size in total I will be going for adding in total 35 rows, so 35 starting also from the beginning. And basically you can just keep on adding these rows and just try on this top as you are adding them to make sure that you are adding the exact number that is needed for your size. And also I could advise that it's better to stretch it out a little bit more, because once you are actually wearing this top it will be stretched and the material or yarn itself is also stretching out a little bit. So just keep that in mind and don't hesitate to actually stretch it to make sure that it fits around you. Here I have added another dragonfly and this is how it looks. And now in total I have 22 rows, and as you can see I'm not only adding length like this but also adding width for this top, and with every single row that I'm adding I'm making it wider. And if I try it on you can see that there's still a little bit left to do, so I will just keep on adding extra rows until both of these ends are able to meet around my body in the back side. Here I have added the 3rd dragonfly and now I have 32 rows in total, and if I check it on the back side I can still see that there are a few more rows to go. And now when I have added 3 more rows and I have 35 of them in total, I can see that both ends are now actually meeting. So now we are done with doing these increases. So here I have my project so far, and now that we have managed to make both of these ends meet when we are trying on this top, we can proceed with next steps, which would basically be to add length to this top to make it a little bit longer. And to do that, what we will do basically is that we will just continue doing rows that have no increases on either of the sides, and in the meantime we will also continue adding in this dragonfly. So for that the steps still continue the same, the only difference is on the sides of the rows that we have. So here I have finished my 35th row, and now we can start with row 36. So I'm just getting my work back in order. So for that, first we have just turned our work like this, and we can start row 36 where we will have no increases at all. And as always, each row we are starting with chain of 3, so 1, 2 and 3, and also as always this is going to count as 1 double crochet. And since we are not adding any increase, and since these 3 chains count as a stitch, it also means that we will have to actually skip this first stitch that we have here. So right after that we are just proceeding with the next stitch that we have here, and in there we are just continuing to do 1 double crochet inside every single stitch that we have here. So here I have already added a couple, and this is how it looks. So you can already with this first row see that we are kind of smoothing this edge and making it straight. Otherwise the process so far for this row is just to continue adding stitches, 1 in each, and then when you reach your dragonfly in the middle, then just repeat the steps that we need for that one, and then continue again further until the end of the row. And here at the end we will just have to add 1 stitch in the very last one. So I will just meet you back there so we can do it together. Otherwise this process is very simple. So here I am at the end of row 36, and here it's just left for me to do 1 more stitch, and here on top of this chain of 3 from the previous row, I'm just adding 1 double crochet stitch. So going in there and doing 1 double crochet like that. So now this row 36 is finalized, and this is how it looks. So for now, this is the process basically for adding some more length to this top, and I will basically be doing 6 rows in total with no increases at all. So I already have this one, so I will just keep on repeating it for 5 more times, but you are more than welcome to add more rows if you want to make this top even longer, or less if you want it to be shorter. But now we can proceed with row 37, and just to remind you the steps, first we are chaining 3 as always, which also counts as double crochet, and because it counts as double crochet and we are not doing any increase, we are skipping the first stitch, and then from the next one we are again continuing with double crochet stitches as we normally do. Here I have added all 6 extra regular rows without any increases, and this is how it looks, and it also completes the 4th dragonfly that we have here. However, as I mentioned, you are more than welcome to make this top a little bit longer or shorter if you wish, and that's totally up to you. But now we can actually proceed further with the next step, which would be to add a border here at the very bottom. So we are technically going to add another row. So here I have already turned my work to this side, so we can proceed working on this border row, which would be the final row for finishing the length of this top. So here I'm just adjusting my loop to my hook like this, and now with our work being turned to this side, we can proceed with adding this border here at the bottom, and we will actually be doing a shell stitch. So for that we will just basically have to do single crochets, double crochets, and also do some skipped chains in between. So let's start doing that. So first our step is to chain 1, and this chain of 1 is not going to count as a stitch, it's just a starting point that helps us to get started with this border. And then our next step is to do a single crochet, and we will be doing that here inside the first stitch. So I'm just going through here, grabbing yarn, pulling it through to have 2 loops, then yarning over and going through both of them. So this is 1 single crochet. After that we just have to skip 2 stitches, so 1 and 2, and then in this third one we are going to do 5 double crochets. So going through this space here, and we are just adding 5 double crochet stitches inside this very same space. So here I'm already proceeding with the third one, and then also adding 4th and 5th like this. So now these 5 double crochet stitches are finalized, and then our next step is to again skip 2, so 1 and 2, and then in this third one, this is where we are again adding 1 single crochet like this. So this now completes 1 shell stitch, and we can proceed with the next one. So again we just have to skip 2, 1 and 2, and then in the third one we are doing 5 double crochet stitches again, and all of these 5 double crochets have to be done inside the same stitch. So just make sure to do 5 double crochets inside there like this, and then once that's done we are again skipping 2, so 1 and 2, and in the third one doing 1 single crochet like this. So this is how you're doing shell stitch, and this is going to be the border of our top. So now what you have to do is just go all the way through this border and keep on adding these shell stitches until you reach the very end of this row and have managed to also complete the last stitch, and this is where I'm going to meet you back again. So just continue doing your shell stitches until you reach the end of this row. And here I have added this shell stitch at the bottom of this top as a border, and here I am at the last ones, and now it's just left for me to finalize. And as you can see, I kind of don't have this perfect finish, I just have 2 stitches left. So actually here I will just be doing single crochet in the last one, so only skipping one and then doing single crochet in the very last stitch that I have here. So that's fine because it's not going to be as noticeable. And if you find yourself in a situation where you're not able to finish it perfectly or even like this, you're more than welcome to do some adjustments, such as only skip one, then do 3 double crochets, skip one again, and then do single crochet. So that's fine because it's just one of them and you won't be able to notice it once this top is actually being worn. But now our border here at the bottom is finalized, and our next step would actually be to connect side to side of this top. So with this shell stitch facing inside, because we want the pretty part to be on the inside, we are just folding it like this, so we have these two sides meeting each other like that, because this is where they are meeting in the back side. So what we want to do is connect both of these sides together, and to do that we will be doing slip stitches. So for that, here I have this loop that I have here, it's currently on that side, and I just want to pull it on this side here. So here I'm just going through this chain of one that we did in the very beginning. So even like here we can go through, and then I'm just grabbing this loop and pulling it through like that. And then to get started we are just chaining one, so this is kind of like already connecting, and then we can proceed with slip stitches. So for that, what we have to do is basically just go through rows on each side, and we just have to make sure that we are going through exactly the same row on both sides and connecting them together. So starting from this first row that I have here, I'm going through this stitch on the side, and then going through the same row also on the other side. So going through here like that, and then I'm just grabbing yarn and pulling it through those rows, as well as loop on my hook like that. And then I can proceed further. So we are kind of going to try to do 1 to 2 slip stitches for each row. So here we added one for like the middle of the row, and then we can add another one where the row ends. So I'm just going through here and then also going through the same spot on the other row like that, and doing another slip stitch. So grabbing yarn, pulling it through and pulling it through the loop on our hook like that. So this is how you're doing slip stitches. So just proceed with adding them in to connect both of these sides together of this top, and basically we just have to do it here for these 6 rows that I did without any increases. So just continue that until you reach this point where we are having these rows where increases were actually done. So just do them until this point, and that's where I'm going to meet you back again. So now these two sides are connected, and this is how it looks. And with that, I have reached these rows where we have these increases. So this is from the inside, and then if I would turn it on the right side, you can see that we have this very smooth and neat connection. And now our next step is to actually add some border here on these sides, on sides of these rows where we have increases. And then once we will reach these points, we will also add in straps here. So at the moment we are on the left side, meaning that we are on the inside. So for adding this border on the side, we actually have to turn our top with the right side facing outwards. So I'm just turning it on the right side like this, and here I still have my yarn and my hook. So now, without also cutting off any yarn, we are just going to proceed with working on this border. And here I'm just going to start on this side because that's the most comfortable one for me, and throughout this border we will just be adding single crochets on top of every single row, and we will have to do approximately 1 to 2 single crochets for every single row. So here I'm just starting with this first stitch that I have here and doing a single crochet in there, and then proceeding on this stitch that we have here like that, and then in this space in between the stitches. So one goes in between the stitches and one goes on top of the stitch like this. So again, 1 single crochet in between these rows, and then one on top of this row like that. So just continue adding these single crochet stitches on each of these rows like that. So this is my progress so far, and you just have to continue doing that until you reach this point here, or kind of like the tip or the first row, so this point here. So just continue with single crochets up until very top of this top where we started, and that's where we are going to add in straps. So now I have added this border and I have reached this tip. So we will start adding a strap here, and then once we have finished that one, we will also add another one here. So for the strap, we first just have to go inside this top stitch that we have here. So I'm just going through that one and also adding a single crochet in there like this. So this is where our strap is going to be coming from. And then for the strap itself, we will first have to do some chains, and the amount of chains will determine how long the strap is. So I will be basically doing 100 chains, but if you wish, you're more than welcome to do more or to do less. However, I would advise you to better go with doing more, because it's always better if you can just shorten it later on instead of doing something that is shorter and then you're just stuck with it. So just continue adding chains. I will be doing 100 in total, and then I will meet you back again once I have all of these 100 chains done. So here I have my all 100 chains, and this is how it looks, and this is going to be the length of one of our straps. So now we can proceed further with actually adding in stitches for this strap, and for that I will again be doing single crochets. And to get started, I'm just skipping this last chain that I did and then going inside the next one and starting to do single crochets from there. So this is the first one, and then we are just proceeding further with next chain and also adding a single crochet in there. So this is the whole process for stitches for this strap. So just go through every single chain that you have and add one single crochet inside each of them. Here I have already done a couple of them, and this is how it looks. So just proceed with going all the way through until you meet this point where you started with our chain, so we can finalize this strap, and that's where I'm going to meet you back again. And here I have completed all of these stitches for the strap, and this is how it's supposed to look. So now what we have to do is basically just to connect it back where we started, and to do that we are simply just doing another single crochet inside this same stitch where we started, so like this. So now this strap is connected, and now what we have to do is just proceed with doing single crochets also on top of stitches that we have here, and then after that we are just adding another strap here on the other side in this point. And here I have added the second strap, so this is how it looks. And now I'm just also continuing with adding border here on this side, so in the exactly the same way as we did it before, I'm just adding 1 to 2 single crochets on top of every single row that we have here. And so here I have also added this border, and I have reached the beginning where we started. So now we are kind of done with this project, so we can fasten off. And to do that, first I'm just gonna go and do a slip stitch here in the first stitch that we have here like that, and then we can fasten off. So I'm just chaining one, then making this loop a little bit longer, then grabbing our scissors, and we can cut off this yarn like that. And then as it's cut off, we can tighten it in a secure knot just by pulling this loose end like this. So now our project is finalized basically, and the last step we can do is to weave in this loose end as well as any other loose ends that you might have. And for that I normally just use my crochet hook, and I just go through with my hook through random stitches in the back side like this, and then I just grab this yarn and pull it through these stitches and weave it in so it's not hanging, and we kind of like smoothly hide it inside these stitches like that. So this is just what you have to do with loose ends that you might have to make sure that your project is also pretty from the inside and nothing is hanging. Otherwise, now your top is finalized and it is ready to be worn. Here with these straps, you're just supposed to tighten them in a bow or in whatever way is most comfortable for you, and then you are ready to go. And this is how it looks on me. I'm super happy with how this project turned out. It gives a lot of summery vibes, so I definitely can't wait for summer to be able to actually wear it, and dragonflies in the middle of this top give it an even cuter look. So that was it from me today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that this tutorial is going to be useful for you in case you're planning to recreate this dragonfly top. And if you manage to do so, then please feel free to tag me in your creations or share photos of them. I'm super excited to see what you are creating and how your projects turned out. But otherwise, as I mentioned, if you have any questions or need some help, then just feel free to reach out in the comment section below. I have also prepared a written version of this pattern available for purchase on my Etsy store, so of course your support will be super appreciated. And besides that, if you have any ideas or requests for my future videos, then just feel free to share your thoughts as well, and I will try to add them on my to-do list. But if you did enjoy this video, then please give me a big thumbs up, and if you're new here, then please subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye!